Hello and Namaste. I am Dr. Apeksha Nirola, currently Assistant Professor in Department of Biochemistry at BP Kurala Institute of Health Sciences. Today we'll be having a presentation on lipoprotein metabolism and its disorders. As you can see in the slide, the first picture depicts the narrowing of the blood vessels because of the deposition of the cholesterol and the lipid-laden crystals, due to which it leads to the obstruction or the sluggish blood flow, ultimately leading to the number of cardiovascular events. The second picture shows that how this lipid-laden crystals, where round-shaped purple colored is the triglyceride, while the bigger one, that is the green color, is the cholesterol, which gets deposited in endothelial cells and causes the obstruction in the blood flow by narrowing of the blood vessels, ultimately leading to the number of cardiovascular events. Similarly, the third picture shows how this cholesterol gets deposited. Deposition ultimately leads to the slowing of the blood flow. And if we look according to the samples of the patients with this lipid disorders, the samples of these patients when compared with the normal one, it's very lipemic, where it's clearly seen that the patient might have some lipid metabolism disorders, and that is mainly related to the lipoprotein disorders. So this events eventually leads to the main factor behind it is the atherosclerosis, ultimately leading to the cardiovascular disorders, the most common one being myocardial infarction, and number of other cerebrovascular events, hypertension, and so on and so forth. So cholesterol, though we talk so much about cholesterol, it's the most feared among the lipids, but if we listen what cholesterol speaks, it says that consumed through the diet and produced in the body, participate in innumerable cellular functions, implicated in several health complications, and blamed I am for no fault of mine. When we look in a brief insight to the history, today versus yesterday, is there any difference? Today we are more into the sedentary lifestyle, and the food habits has a vast or a drastic change, where we are mostly reliant upon the processed food, and we have number of health related disorders. But when we look history, even Egyptian mummies had heart disease, and the study finds that when they looked around the Egyptian mummies, they found that though there was lack of tobacco and no sedentary lifestyle, but still their CT scan showed that the carotid intima, there was a thickness and the arteries were thickened, which ultimately had calcification, and that was attributable to some cholesterol related disorders, that is lipid related disorders. And later on they found that the mummies mainly of the rich had most common features of atherosclerosis, that might be because of their dietary habits, because of the lipid rich food, and they were more into the household smoke, which might have attributable to the heart disease. So in history too we have heart diseases, and that is mostly attributable to the lipid related disorders, and that's why we are more concerned to the lipoprotein metabolism and the lipid related disorders in today's era. So the objective of today's presentation is we will be knowing about what are lipids, that is the general concepts which we already been knowing about. What are the types of lipids, what are lipoproteins, what are the nomenclature of lipoproteins, and what are apolipoproteins, how is the metabolism of individual lipoproteins going on in our body, and types of lipoprotein metabolism disorders. So lipids. As we all know, lipids are the compounds which are insoluble in water and relatively soluble in the organic solvents like your chloroform. So they are virtually insoluble in water and organic solvents, they are readily soluble. The lipoproteins are the macromolecule complexes, which are complexes with protein, that allow the hydrophobic lipids to be transported or easily move within the circulation, that is the which is hydrophilic. So lipids, these lipids, they can be broadly classified into sterols like cholesterol or phytosterol, fatty acids or substance containing fatty acids like triglycerides and phospholipids. We have eicosanoids, where the examples are thromboxane, your prostaglandins, leukotrienes, and your fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E and K, and sphingolipids, which is mainly present in the neural sheath. So there are variety of lipids which are biologically very important for us, and among this the most studied and most implicated in health related events are the cholesterol and the lipoproteins associated with it. So these are the major classes where the functions are depicted as in the picture. We all know that cholesterol, though it is implicated in number of cardiovascular events, it is a structural component of the cell membrane. It provides the fluidity to the membrane, due to which the membrane transport is being possible, and it is the precursor for the bile acids, your steroid hormones, fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D. Fatty acids, they are the source of your energy. They are mainly required when the body is depleted of energy. Triglycerides, they are the stored form of lipids which are mainly stored in your adipose tissues. And phospholipids is the structural components of membranes, where your phosphates are mainly hydrophilic, which are present outside of the membrane. Eicosanoids, these are prostaglandins, leukotrienes, which are mainly having functions in your blood coagulation, bronchial and your vascular contractility and reproduction. We have sphingolipids. These sphingolipids are very important components of your myelin sheath. So they are present in your central nervous system and also in the blood group substances. Then you have wax soluble vitamins, vitamin A in vision, vitamin D. You have number of functions of vitamin D, mainly in the calcium and phosphate regulation, and also in case of immunomodulation. There are number of articles coming up for various roles of vitamins, like in depression, in other psychiatric illness as well. Vitamin E, which is important antioxidant and has function in neural tissues, and vitamin K is important as an activator of clotting factors. So we'll be discussing more on the cholesterol and the lipoproteins in today's presentation. So cholesterol, it is the form of sterol, and it is a 27 ring lipids that is having mostly present in your body cells and fluids, and is an integral component of your cell membrane. It is mainly in free and unesterified form, and this is the major form of cholesterol which gets deposited in your blood vessels and your endothelial cells, and which we are mostly concerned of. So free and unesterified component is also the structural component of the cell membranes, and cholesterol esters, it presents in the normal cell. If it is present, it represents a store for future use and appear microscopically as intracellular droplets. The cholesterol droplets or the crystals has a cleft in its side which gives its characteristic appearance, and the de novo synthesis of cholesterol in body is made by the acetate via a rate limiting enzyme HMG-CoA reductase, forming HMG from your acetate, and we get cholesterol even from the diet rich in the lipids and cholesterol. Now we all know that liver is the major organ in the body for synthesis of number of compounds, cholesterol being one of it, which is synthesized in the liver, and it is the precursor which I have already talked for a number of physiologically important compounds like vitamin D, bile acids, gonadal and steroid hormones. Only a small amount of the body's pool cholesterol comes from the dietary cholesterol, and we generally synthesize cholesterol from acetate, that is acetyl-CoA. So liver, it is the key organ in the synthesis of number of important compounds like your proteins, plasma proteins like albumin, and lipids, majorly cholesterol. So cholesterol is majorly regulated by your liver, because whenever liver is impaired, not only your protein synthesis is dysregulated, your cholesterol balance is also impaired. So excess of cholesterol, if there is in the body, liver converts the excess cholesterol and excrete it in the form of the bile acids. So now coming on to the lipoproteins proper for today's presentation, we all know that there are various kinds of lipoprotein, and its nomenclature is classified as your chylomicrons, very low density lipoproteins, low density lipoproteins, and high density lipoproteins. We can also call it as alpha, beta, alpha, pre-beta and beta lipoproteins according to the mode of electrophoresis, that is the movement of these lipoproteins on electrophoresis. And there is an intermediate density lipoproteins which comes in between the very low density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins during the metabolic process. So as we can see in the picture, there is the electrophoretic slide for the lipoproteins movement, where the chylomicrons, which contains major amount of the lipid, that is mainly triacylglycerol, it's present at the original position and it does not move, because electrophoresis is the process where the movement of the particle is based on the charge and the mass, while your HDL, which is the lightest one, which has more proteins and less cholesterol or less lipid, it moves the farthest, and that's why in the alpha band we can see the HDL. So alpha lipoproteins are the HDL, while the beta lipoproteins are the VLDL and LDL. VLDL, it comes in between, that is at the pre-beta region, so it is also known as the pre-beta lipoproteins. So now this is the characteristics of the major lipoprotein classes, where your chylomicrons have the highest number of, that is the highest number of lipids and less amount of the proteins, while your HDL, since it is known as high density lipoprotein because it has a dense protein and less lipids, and between this we have VLDL, IDL and LDL. Now we have different kinds of HDL. As in the slides you can see that we have pre-beta, HDL3 and HDL2 according to the shape, that is if it is a discoidal shape, that is the proper discoidal is your native, that is naive HDL, we have pre-beta HDL, where you have less cholesterol and more amount of apolipoproteins, while you have HDL2 which has more cholesterol and less amount of the apolipoprotein. On comparing of this, HDL2 proves to be more atherogenic compared to your other form of HDL, though HDL is not atherogenic, but when we can see the amount of cholesterol by comparing it, HDL2 has more amount of cholesterol compared to pre-beta 1 HDL and HDL3. So now these are the lipoproteins, and we know that lipoproteins are important protein complexes that is complexed with the lipid for the movement of the lipid in the circulation. We have apolipoproteins which are very specific for the each lipoproteins, which helps in number of ways by activating some enzymes and imparting the transport function, as well as they act as a ligand for each of the lipoprotein. So we have apolipoprotein A, B and C. We have D, E and M as well, but most important one we have A, B and C, and according to the class of the lipoproteins, these apolipoproteins differs. I am giving the brief overview of the apolipoproteins. We will be discussing further in individual metabolism. So apolipoprotein A, it is the major lipoprotein for HDL. Here we can see that ApoA1, it's important because it is an activator of enzyme which helps in the esterification of the cholesterol, that is LCAT, lecithin cholesterol acyl transferase. We have apolipoprotein B. Apolipoprotein B is mainly associated with your VLDL and LDL, that is beta lipoproteins, and this is among this ApoB100 is specific for your LDL and ApoB48 is specific for your chylomicrons. And then the third one is ApoC. ApoC lipoproteins, it has specific activity of activating the enzyme, that is lipoprotein lipase, which breaks down the triacylglycerol which is contained in this lipoproteins and gives into the free fatty acid and your monoacylglycerol, so that these lipids, they are taken up to the peripheral tissue where they can be stored or they can be metabolized for their further use. And then we have apolipoprotein D, E and M, which are less studied, and it is mainly useful seen that apolipoprotein D is the transport of small lipophilic molecule. Among this, apolipoprotein E has been associated with chylomicron as well as VLDL remnants, where it provides a specificity for entry where the liver recognizes these lipoproteins. So since we saw there that apolipoprotein B48 and apolipoprotein B100, they have one thing in common, that is ApoB. Both of these come from ApoB gene, and we can see that this is a very good example of tissue specific RNA editing. Both of them have come from apolipoprotein B gene, but when this apolipoprotein B gene is transcribed to the mRNA and expressed into the protein, that is ApoB, it is transcribed as ApoB100, which is constituting of 4536 amino acid. and it is specific for your LDL in your LDL, that is lipoprotein. While we can see that apolipoprotein B48, why the name came as B48 is when it is this mRNA, when it is transcribed in 48% of this apolipoprotein B gene, the CAA codon, which codes for the glutamate, it's converted into UAA, which is the stop codon. So further translation of this protein does not occur, and that's why the name comes to be ApoB48, and that is specific for your intestine. It happens to be in the intestine, and this ApoB48 is specific for your chylomicrons. So this is a very beautiful example of your tissue specific RNA editing. Now coming on to the functions of your lipoproteins. Why do we require lipoproteins, whether they have any important function in the human body? So there are a number of functions of your lipoproteins in your human body. The first one is in the exogenous lipid transport. It means that whichever fat we are taking from the diet, they are absorbed by the enterocytes, that is intestinal cells, and their transport is taken up by your lipoproteins, specifically chylomicrons. The second one is that is the endogenous lipid transport, that is whatever cholesterol or lipids we are synthesizing in our body, it is transported from the liver to the peripheral tissue and is mainly done by your VLDL and LDL. And the third one is transport of your extrahepatic cholesterol to the liver, so that the excess cholesterol is not being deposited in your peripheral tissues, and that is mainly done by the HDL, and which is also known as a good cholesterol, because it does not let the excess cholesterol to be deposited in the peripheral tissue and ultimately gets back into the liver, where this cholesterol is metabolized into the bile acids and ultimately excreted. Now, after the nomenclature, the functions of apolipoproteins, lipoproteins, we'll be moving on to what does this lipoproteins consist of. Okay, so this lipoproteins contains various form of the lipids. This lipids majorly consists of triacylglycerol, we have phospholipids, we have free cholesterol and cholesterol ester. Mainly cholesterol ester is the specific constituent of your HDL, while your free cholesterol is present in mainly your LDL and your VLDL, and TG is the major component of chylomicrons. Now, bulk of your transport of your plasma cholesterol is associated with LDL. It means that it is shown by your LDL. The cholesterol level is mainly represented by your LDL, that is the plasma cholesterol, while bulk of your triacylglycerol is associated with your chylomicrons. Mainly the endogenous cholesterol is shown by your LDL, while exogenous, that is the triacylglycerol, is associated with your chylomicrons. We talked about the functions of lipoproteins, which was in exogenous cholesterol transport, endogenous lipid transport, and your reverse cholesterol transport. What are the functions of apolipoproteins, that are apolipoprotein A, B, C, D and M? They have individual functions, which I have told about how it is associated with their specific lipoproteins. The important functions of apolipoprotein is first the transport. Since lipoproteins also contains your lipid complexes, so they are not hydrophilic, so we require some proteins to get easily transported into the bloodstream, that is the circulation, which is hydrophilic. So in transportation in the circulation, apolipoproteins gives ease for the lipoproteins to get transported. Enzyme activation. Each apolipoproteins are activator of specific enzyme. For example, apolipoprotein C2 is an important activator of lipoprotein lipase. Lipase, as we all know, it is an enzyme which cuts the lipids, that is mainly the triacylglycerol, into the smaller compound, that is the monoacylglycerol and your free fatty acid, which is importantly consumed by your peripheral tissues. Similarly, ApoA1 is an activator of lecithin cholesterol acyltransferase, which is an important component of your HDL. Third one is ligand. Ligand, it acts as a ligand for your LDL receptor. Mainly ApoB100 is an important ligand by which LDL receptor in the hepatocytes as well as in your peripheral tissues recognize your LDL and takes up the LDL cholesterol. Now moving on to how does this lipoprotein particle looks as. So we can see that in the picture, this is a complete lipoprotein molecule which is made up of your cholesterol, phospholipids, triacylglycerol, that is mainly triglycerides, cholesterol esters. The purple one is the apoprotein. So hydrophobic part goes inside your lipoprotein particle, and the hydrophilic, that is the phospholipids, are the heads are outside, so that it gets easily passed into the circulation. So if we see chemically how does this happens, so this is the structural component of how this apolipoprotein molecule particle is mediated. That is, we have choline outside and the phospholipids outside. Now moving on to the individual metabolism of lipoproteins. First we'll be talking about how your dietary fat gets transported from the intestine to the peripheral tissue and ultimately to the liver, and that is done by chylomicrons. Chylomicron is completely synthesized in your intestine, and it is important lipoprotein for transport of your dietary triacylglycerol. So it is transporter of dietary triacylglycerol, so it is mainly for the exogenous lipid transport. So it is synthesized in the intestine and transport triacylglycerol to skeletal muscles, your adipose tissue, and ultimately it gives the dietary cholesterol to the liver, where it is used for the further metabolism. And what happens is, when this chylomicron passes through the capillaries of the various tissues, the triacylglycerols are hydrolyzed by lipoprotein lipase. Importance of lipoprotein lipase is, it is specific for triacylglycerol, where it breaks triacylglycerol to your monoacylglycerol and free fatty acid, and gives it to the peripheral tissues like muscles, adipose tissue, where it can take those or it can store it for the further use. This lipoprotein enzyme is located mainly on the endothelial surface, and it is present outside, that is, it is in the extracellular compartment in the plasma membrane. So the fatty acid and monoacylglycerol is coming from the hydrolysis of triacylglycerol by LPL, that is lipoprotein lipase. One thing we have to keep in mind, what is important apolipoprotein for chylomicron. As I have already told, ApoB48 is specific for chylomicron, which is present there while it is nascent, that is when it is freshly made, and when it comes into the circulation where a mature chylomicron is formed, it is by apolipoprotein A, C and E attachment. So chylomicrons, as you can see, a nascent chylomicron is formed in the intestinal cells, that is the enterocytes. When it is freshly formed, it only contains ApoB48 and ApoA as the apolipoproteins, and main contains of TG. So this happens to be released into the blood circulation via your lymph vessels through thoracic duct. So when it comes into the circulation, it gets apolipoprotein C and E. In my previous slide, I have shown that your HDL is mainly rich in, that is, HDL contains ApoA mainly and ApoC and E as well. So it gives this ApoC and E to this nascent chylomicron, and this whole assembly is known as mature chylomicron. If you can see, this chylomicron majorly contains cholesterol in the form of triacylglycerol inside it, and it contains specific ApoB48, which is specific for your chylomicron. Now, when it comes into the circulation, by attachment of ApoC from HDL, where it is C1 and C2. In my previous slide, I have told that apolipoproteins are the activator of enzymes. ApoC2 is an activator of lipoprotein lipase. So what does this lipoprotein lipase do? Lipoprotein lipase are specific enzymes present mainly in the endothelial cells. They breaks down the TG, which is present inside this chylomicrons, and gets into monoacylglycerol and free fatty acid, which it gives it to the peripheral tissues like adipose tissue and skeletal muscles. Now this gets smaller, that is the TG which is broken down gives a less that is the less dense your less packed with cholesterol chylomicrons, and when it is there in the circulation still, it gets back its ApoA and C to the HDL. Now this chylomicron, you can see this mature chylomicron, which is a very large molecule, it shrinks by giving away its TG to your peripheral tissues, it still has cholesterol, cholesterol ester and small amount of Tg, which is known as chylomicron remnant, which contains ApoB48 and ApoE. Why is this needed? It's because liver can recognize this chylomicron remnant only when it has apolipoprotein B48 and ApoE. If it is not there, liver cannot uptake this chylomicron inside it via the process known as receptor mediated endocytosis. So this chylomicron remnant, it is recognized by the liver surface, that is ApoE receptor. Is recognized by your hepatocytes, and when it is recognized, it is taken inside the liver, where it is acted upon by the lysosomal enzymes. Lysosomal degradation occurs for the exogenous proteins. So it breaks down your apolipoproteins and the cholesterol Tg, they are liberated, and this Tg is ultimately useful for the further de novo cholesterol synthesis. So in this way, this exogenous cholesterol lipid, that is in the form of triacylglycerol, is packed and formed chylomicrons. It gives away its lipids in the form of free fatty acid monoacylglycerol to required peripheral tissue, and it gets back the remnant cholesterol and Tg back to the liver. So this is an exogenous lipid transport. So a clinical implication here is, if there is lipoprotein lipase deficiency, so when there is lipoprotein lipase is not there, what happens is this Tg phospholipids or your cholesterol which is present inside the chylomicron do not break down. So we have increase in chylomicron in the circulation, and the condition known as hyperchylomicronemia can occur in case of deficiency of LPL. Now coming on to the endogenous cholesterol transport, that is endogenous lipid transport, which is done by your very low density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins, VLDL and LDL. This VLDL is formed in hepatocytes. Remember that this is the dietary cholesterol or the cholesterol synthesized in your liver, which is moving on, or which is delivered into the peripheral tissue wherever cholesterol or lipid is required, and if the excess is there, it is again coming back into the liver by some other lipoprotein. So now we are going to learn about how the endogenously made cholesterol is going or delivered from the liver to the peripheral tissues wherever your cholesterol or lipids are required. For this we have two lipoproteins, one is VLDL and another is LDL. We have known that this VLDL is formed inside the hepatocytes by the same means as your chylomicron. That is, we have triacylglycerol, cholesterol, cholesterol ester, phospholipids inside your VLDL, and specific apolipoproteins is present are ApoB100, where when it is naive, that is the nascent VLDL inside the liver. Now it happens to be like your apolipoproteins comes from rough endoplasmic reticulum, your lipids are synthesized in your smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and your Golgi apparatus is there where it helps to glycosylate and form your nascent VLDL. So this nascent VLDL is important because it is transferring, or it is acting as a cargo to deliver your cholesterol and your endogenously made lipid to your peripheral tissues. Now, this picture summarizes that how does this happen, the endogenous cholesterol happen to be from the liver to your required peripheral tissues. Now, this is the complete metabolism of LDL, VLDL, and you have IDL in between LDL and VLDL. So in liver cells, that is hepatocytes, there is the assembly of organelle, that is rough endoplasmic reticulum here, smooth endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus. These assembly forms the nascent VLDL. If you can see, this nascent VLDL is just having ApoB100 majorly, and it contains ApoC and ApoE, and it is packed or condensed with triacylglycerol cholesterol inside it. And our target is to deliver this to the peripheral tissues wherever your cholesterol is required. Now, when it comes into the circulation, you get ApoE and ApoE from HDL, which is the reservoir for this apolipoproteins, and this forms the mature VLDL. So, mature VLDL contains ApoB100, ApoC and ApoE. Now, we all know that ApoC2 is again the activator of lipoprotein lipase, and only the addition of ApoC2 can have the activation of your lipoprotein lipase to break break down the triacylglycerol present inside your VLDL. Now when it is attacked by a lipoprotein lipase by your plasma membrane, where your lipoprotein lipase are present in your plasma membrane, which is anchored by your proteoglycans, that is heparan sulfate, which is present in the endothelial cells. This is very important because if you don't have a lipoprotein lipase, as I have shown you previously, if there is no lipoprotein lipase, it is not going to break down TG present in chylomicron as well as in VLDL. So it can lead to hyperchylomicronemia and your beta lipoproteinemia as well. So once this lipoprotein lipase, it gets attached to this or it attacks this VLDL, it breaks down this TG. So this TG is broken down into free fatty acid and monoacylglycerol, which is taken up by your adipose tissue, your skeletal muscle and other peripheral tissues. This ApoC is going back again to your HDL. Here one important thing is this triacylglycerol, which was present inside the VLDL, again also goes to HDL in exchange of something else. I'll be describing this later. What does HDL give to VLDL and why this TH is going back to HDL? This is important in case of reverse cholesterol transport. Now once it is it has given all this, that is your VLDL is attacked by lipoprotein lipase, it is getting smaller, that is your lipids are being delivered into the peripheral tissues. This remnant of VLDL is recognized by the receptors which are present, which belongs to the LDL receptor gene family. It recognizes ApoE present in your VLDL, which is taken up by receptor mediated endocytosis, or it can also be broken down, acted upon by hepatic lipase, which is also present in the surface of the liver, that is hepatocytes, and it breaks down its further cholesterol which is present inside this VLDL. Now this VLDL remnant and LDL, in between this we have another lipoprotein form which is known as intermediate density lipoprotein. So intermediate density lipoprotein is named because its density is in between the VLDL remnant and LDL. So it is becoming more cholesterol when it is coming on to LDL, because if you can see here, the apolipoproteins are given away or it is degraded by your lysosomal enzymes when it goes inside the liver. So it only has one apolipoprotein, that is ApoB100. It means that LDL has more amount of cholesterol and less amount of proteins. So apolipoproteins are the proteins. We have cholesterol inside it, which is densely packed. So now this LDL the LDL receptor is present in almost all of the peripheral cells. Mainly it is present in your skeletal muscle, in your peripheral tissues, adipose tissue and your macrophages. In macrophages, we have LDL receptor and we have another LDL-like receptors also, which is not regulated. But this LDL receptor, it is regulated because it gets activated and deactivated depending upon the concentration of the intracellular cholesterol. So this cholesterol is given up, or this LDL is taken up by receptor mediated endocytosis, where this lysosomal enzyme breaks down the proteins and the lipases, it breaks down the lipids component present here. Now once this LDL it's taken up by the LDL receptor and it's to the peripheral tissues. If the peripheral tissues senses that you have excess of cholesterol, these LDL receptors are not present in the surface. This is a very important point because this is the way how your LDL regulation happens to be. That is, when you have intracellular cholesterol optimum or excess, LDL receptors are not expressed in the surface, so there is no uptaking of your LDL inside the peripheral tissues. So once this metabolism of LDL is completed, this LDL is again going back to the liver. It is acted upon by your receptor mediated endocytosis. Liver has specific LDL receptor or LDL receptor like protein which recognizes ApoB100, and it gets inside where it breaks down the via the lysosomal enzymes, it breaks down the lipoproteins, and this TG cholesterol is taken up for the further membrane synthesis and further metabolism of cholesterol. So this is the pathway or your whole metabolic process by which your endogenous lipid or the cholesterol synthesis is taking up in the liver, that is, it is happening in the liver, and the cholesterol required is delivered to the peripheral tissues via the lipoproteins VLDL, IDL and LDL. IDL as such, it is not as a cargo, or it is not a mediator for transport, but it is formed in between VLDL remnant and LDL, and here LDL is considered to be the major transporter of your cholesterol to the peripheral tissues, because almost all of the peripheral tissues, that is the extrahepatic tissues, has the LDL receptor where the uptake of LDL cholesterol can happen easily. Now, LDL is considered to be a bad cholesterol. Why? Because we can see that LDL, it has more amount of your packed cholesterol inside and just one ApoB100, that is protein present, and this LDL, since it has more amount of lipid, and lipids are the compound which has high tendency of getting modified by oxidation, by glycosylation, you have hydroxylation. Mainly this oxidized LDL or acetylated LDL are the LDL which is taken up by unregulated LDL receptor present in the macrophages, and that is further increasing the risk for atherosclerosis. That's why LDL is of much of concern, because it contains more amount of cholesterol, that is a very less amount of proteins, and it has high tendency of getting modified. Now coming on to the next slide, that is mode of action of lipoprotein lipase. I have been talking it almost thrice. The lipoprotein lipase is breaking your triacylglycerol into monoacylglycerol and free fatty acid. This lipoprotein lipase is a very important enzyme. Why? Because it is activated by ApoC2. So if every lipoproteins like your VLDL, your chylomicrons, all of them have ApoC2, and ApoC2, if it is not present, the lipoprotein lipase is not activated. And even if there is deficiency of lipoprotein lipase, though ApoC2 is present, this lipoprotein lipase cannot break down the TG present inside your VLDL or chylomicron, due to which there is decrease in TG degradation and increase in your chylomicron and VLDL in the circulation. The location of this is, it is present in the plasma membrane of the endothelial cells, which mainly in case of the peripheral tissues, it is anchored by your heparan sulfate, the proteoglycan chain. Why it is important? Because it has an hormonal regulation, mainly insulin. It increases the level, or it increases the activity of your lipoprotein lipase, because as we all know, insulin, it is more toward lipogenesis. So what happens is, when it breaks this triacylglycerol present inside your VLDL or chylomicron, this TG is converted or broken down into free fatty acid and monoacylglycerol and delivered into the adipose tissue, where it can be used for storage or further metabolism. Rather than breaking down, it is going for the formation. That's why lipoprotein lipase activity is increased by insulin and noradrenaline, while the anti-insulin hormone like noradrenaline, you have your other catecholamines, they decrease the enzyme activity. That is, lipoprotein lipase activity could not happen when you have increased amount of your catecholamines. And also in case of insulin deficiency, like in case of diabetes, what happens is your lipoprotein lipase activity is deranged, or lipoprotein lipase activity is reduced. That's why there is decreased degradation of TG present in the chylomicrons and VLDL. That's why that leads to the dyslipidemia in these patients. So insulin, it is very important because it helps in the offloading and uptake of fatty acids to the peripheral tissue, which contributes for the lipogenesis. And insulin, it's important activator, or let's say it increases the activity of lipoprotein lipase for balancing the lipid, that is the peripheral tissues. They rather go for the lipogenesis and storage of this excess lipids if present. So that's why insulin do not lead to lipolysis, rather it is helping in case of lipogenesis. Now coming on to another enzyme which we frequently come over, like lipoprotein lipase, hormone sensitive lipase. These two are really confusing. So lipoprotein lipase and hormone sensitive lipase, these are the two lipases which major work is to degrade the triacylglycerol into monoacylglycerol and free fatty acids, but their mode of action is different. Lipoprotein lipase is more toward lipogenesis, that is, it is going to make the body to store the excess fat, while hormone sensitive lipase is more toward lipolysis. So lipoprotein lipase, it is mainly activated by ApoC2, which is present in your chylomicrons in VLDL, and it helps in the degradation of your triacylglycerol, which is contained in this lipoprotein, so that it gets delivered into the peripheral tissues, where it can use it for the further metabolism, or it can store it as in the form of further in case of excess lipids. While hormone sensitive lipase is not activated by ApoC2, but it is activated by your hormones like your catecholamines or glucocorticoid through CMP dependent phosphorylation. Insulin is a hormone which increases the activity of lipoprotein lipase, so that it is giving the body is into the state of lipogenesis, while hormone sensitive lipase is inhibited by your insulin, so that lipolysis does not happen when insulin concentration is adequate in your body. So unlike lipoprotein lipase, which is present in the capillary walls of the endothelial cells, in adipose tissue and other peripheral tissues, your hormone sensitive lipase is not bound to the capillary walls mainly by the proteoglycan chains. Hormone sensitive lipase, it is the action of hormone sensitive lipase is mediated via catecholamines, and what happens is it breaks down the stored TAG into monoacylglycerol and free fatty acids, so that those lipids are drowned into the circulation, leading into the dyslipidemia in case of insulin deficiency and excess glucocorticoids or excess catecholamines hormones. Now in a nutshell, we can have the summary of your endogenous cholesterol transport and exogenous cholesterol transport. The first slide, the first picture here, it shows how chylomicrons, they are synthesized in your intestinal cells, and they are traveled via the lymph vessels or thoracic duct into the blood, where the mature chylomicrons gives away its TAG and free fatty acid to the peripheral tissue, and it gets into the liver carrying its remnant cholesterol, which is recognized by your ApoE receptor, which is an ApoB48, which chylomicron is specific for, by which your exogenous cholesterol, that is the dietary cholesterol, is transported into the peripheral tissues and into the liver. The second point suggests that how VLDL, that is the endogenous cholesterol, which is synthesized in the liver, is transported into the circulation and to the peripheral tissues, where this VLDL it shrinks away by giving away its apolipoprotein in towards this course back to the HDL, and giving it again compacts into the liver, where it is taken up by the receptor mediated endocytosis, and it's going to get converted into IDL and LDL. This LDL is the major cargo or major mediator of the cholesterol to the peripheral tissues. And why this LDL is more emphasized? Because LDL receptors are present in most of the peripheral tissues, and it can readily take this LDL for its cholesterol use. What happens is, whenever you have intracellular concentration of cholesterol being very high, this LDL receptors is not present or not expressed in the surface. So that's how the cholesterol regulation happens. The second is, your LDL cholesterol or your intracellular cholesterol is high. This HMG-CoA reductase, which is the major regulatory enzyme, that is the rate limiting step in endogenous cholesterol synthesis, it gets inhibited when you have increased or excessive LDL cholesterol. Intracellular cholesterol is raised, and this way the LDL receptor is regulated, and cholesterol is released from the internalized LDL via lysosomal lipases, and it takes away the proteins, and your cholesterol is then used for the membrane use, that is it is used as in the surface of the membrane, and for the further metabolism wherever cholesterol is required. So in this way, the exogenous as well as the endogenous cholesterol transport happens in our body. Now just a picture of how this LDL receptor and the other receptor, that is your scavenger receptors, are almost alike. This lipoprotein receptor, that is your LDL receptor, is mainly for the cellular uptake of your LDL, and it is only recognizing the ApoB100 present in your LDL. While you have another receptor known as scavenger receptor, mainly present in your macrophages, which has a similar, it is a transmembrane, you can see there it is spanning the membrane outside as well as inside. So it is a transmembrane glycoprotein, that is the receptor, where it is not regulated by the intracellular cholesterol content. So whenever this LDL, which has high tendency of getting modified, it gets modified, this scavenger receptor can take as much as of LDL, that is modified oxidized LDL, glycosylated LDL or acetylated LDL, and it is not regulated, which can cause to atherosclerosis. Now coming on to, I've already talked about LDL receptors, so I'm not going much detail on this. Just know that LDL receptor is recognized, that is, it recognizes the ApoB100 which is present in the LDL, which is specific, and this LDL receptor is tightly regulated by the intracellular concentration of the cholesterol, and this is mainly abundantly present in your hepatocytes and adrenal cortex. In peripheral tissues, the LDL receptors are present in your fibroblast, in your vascular smooth muscles and lymphocytes, and the uptake happens to be by receptor mediated endocytosis. Now, the recognition of LDL receptor was contributed by Goldstein and Brown, who were awarded the Nobel Prize in the year 1985 for their work on how this LDL receptor uptake can help in your lipid metabolism. Now, regulation, the regulation of lipid LDL is, that is, whenever there is intracellular decreased cholesterol level, the LDL receptor happens to be more in your surface of your peripheral tissues, so that there is upregulation. Whenever there is decrease in the cholesterol level, that is upregulation of LDL receptors happens to be there. But whenever there is increase in cholesterol level, LDL receptor is not present in the surface, that is, there is down regulation, and this down regulation happens to be whenever there is raised intracellular cholesterol concentration, or in cases of hypercholesterolemia where there is abundant of cholesterol already present in the circulation, which cannot take more amount of LDL. So those LDL is again gone back into the liver, where it is broken down into the cholesterol, your TAG, for further metabolism. So this is how your regulation of intracellular cholesterol concentration happens to be via the LDL receptor. So whenever there is LDL cholesterol is more, your LDL receptor is not expressed in your surface. When it is less, it is expressed. That is, when it is expressed, it is known as upregulation. When it is when it is not expressed, when more intracellular cholesterol is there, it is known as downregulation. Now, most important fact of why we are going to more deeply on LDL cholesterol is, LDL cholesterol is not only taken by our LDL receptor, but there is a scavenger receptor present in the macrophages which can take this LDL when it is modified, and this modified LDL uptake is not regulated by the body. So it can take as much of modified cholesterol, which is going to have a deleterious effect on health, that is leading to atherosclerosis via the formation of foam cells. So this unregulated macrophages related uptake of LDL is taken up by, because of the structural homology with the LDL receptor, and it is not able to take the LDL receptor, LDL cholesterol. It is only able to take the modified LDL. Modification can take place in the form of glycosylation or mainly oxidation, hydroxylation, your sulfation. There are a number of modification of LDL that can happen, and that is unregulated. The second important thing is, the intracellular concentration is not going to hamper your LDL uptake via scavenger receptor. That's why, however high amount of cholesterol is present inside your cells, that is not going to depress the activity of HMG-CoA reductase. So there is nothing to regulate that HMG-CoA reductase to stop the formation of cholesterol, because it is not going to sense, or it is not going to regulate this scavenger receptor mediated uptake of LDL via macrophages. So as a result of which, there is uptake of excessive cholesterol, and ultimately this macrophages gets converted into the foam cells via oxidized LDL. In addition, we have release of other cytokines and inflammatory mediators, which causes formation of foam cell, which is going to form the atherosclerotic plaque and gets deposited in your blood vessels. So in the picture you can see there, if there is LDL which is signified by a star, it is only taken up by your LDL receptor, that is which is present in the liver and the peripheral tissue. But when it is oxidized, this oxidized LDL can be taken up by your scavenger receptor present in the macrophages, and when it is taking up, what happens is this modified LDL accumulates, and this macrophages, which contains more amount of the cholesterol, and it gets body to get to secrete more amount of the inflammatory mediator cytokines. It causes the proliferation of this cell, so it becomes bigger, so it forms the foam cells, and this foam cells takes more and more lipid. It also can produce the collagen. So this foam cells which is formed, it gets deposited inside the carotid intima, in the endothelial cells, and in the blood vessels, causing the obstruction to the blood flow, and this condition is propagating to your atherosclerosis. So you must be thinking that what happened to the LDL which went inside the liver, so and inside the peripheral tissues. So the LDL which is taken up by the normal LDL receptor, it is acted upon by the lysosomal enzymes, where it breaks down the cholesterol and the protein, that is lipid and protein are separated. Those protein are again recycled. Those lipids, they are used for membranes formation. If it is not useful for membrane, those proteins are, those cholesterol is taken up by the HDL, and this is taken up into the liver, where it is degraded into the bile acids. So what happens? Decreased cholesterol biosynthesis by inhibiting activity of the key enzyme is there if the cholesterol is not needed for the membrane. If it is of not of much use, it suppresses the HMG-CoA reductase enzyme, and it also inhibits the surface expression of LDL receptors. Also, it causes the formation or activation of acyl CoA cholesterol acyl transferase, which causes esterification of the cholesterol, which causes the formation of esterified cholesterol, which can be stored. We are more concerned with the free cholesterol, which is more deleterious, but the esterified cholesterol, they can be stored and they can be used whenever there is energy depleted states. Now the last cholesterol lipoprotein metabolism for today's presentation is metabolism of HDL, which is very important because HDL is going to take away all the cholesterol which was delivered to the peripheral tissue if it is in excess to the liver, and when it is going to the liver, it is ultimately degraded and excreted in the form of bile acids. So HDL, since it contains more amount of proteins and less amount of your lipids, it is known as a good cholesterol. Also, it is participating in the removal of excess cholesterol from the peripheral tissues back to the liver. It is helping in reverse cholesterol transport. So HDL is also known as scavengers of lipids because it is going to remove all the free cholesterol from extrahepatic tissues. So it cannot just take it. So it is taking it, and in return it is giving the ester, that is cholesterol esters, to those lipoproteins like your VLDL, your chylomicron. It is taking up all the free cholesterol inside it, and what does it do with that free cholesterol? It is getting back those free cholesterol to the liver, and liver, it acts those cholesterol degrades it to the bile acids. So HDL, it is a good cholesterol. It is giving your cardioprotective effect because it is not letting all the cholesterol to get deposited in the blood vessels and your intima, so that it is not obstructing or letting your atherosclerosis to happen, and it is helping in the reverse cholesterol transport by taking all the cholesterol excess to the liver again. So you have exogenous cholesterol transport via chylomicrons, endogenous cholesterol transport via VLDL, LDL, and reverse cholesterol transport, that is cholesterol from peripheral tissues to the liver by HDL. So in the first part of this figure, you can see that HDL is formed in the liver. The HDL which is formed in the liver is a nascent HDL which contains your few small amount of cholesterol and phospholipids and ApoA1. So this nascent HDL is discoidal in shape, and when it reaches into the circulation, it receives ApoC, ApoE, other lipoproteins, and it has ALCAT and CETP activity. That is this enzymatic activity. It's mainly done, ALCAT is activated by ApoA1, and CETP, it obtains it from the plasma. So what happens is, once it is inside in the circulation, this is also known as pre-beta 1 or nascent discoidal HDL. When it comes into the circulation, this is HDL3, or we can say it as a more active HDL. So HDL3 contains large amount of proteins and less amount of your cholesterol. So from the peripheral tissues, what does this HDL3 does? It gives away its your cholesterol. It takes away its it gives away its cholesterol ester and takes away its TG and your excessive cholesterol which is present in the peripheral tissues. Once it takes away more amount of TG and cholesterol and gives away its cholesterol ester, it forms a more larger lipid content and protein content are there, which is known as HDL2. So HDL2 is again it is exchanging its cholesterol ester in place of TG from the other like chylomicrons VLDL. You can see here it is giving away its cholesterol ester to the peripheral tissues and it is taking away its TG. Why it is doing this is cholesterol esters, they are esterified form, they are not harmful, so they can be stored inside and they cannot be oxidized or they cannot be modified further, and it takes away its TG and other free cholesterol so that it is not going to leak away or it is not going to get modified, leading to further deleterious effect to the health. So in this way it is coming from the liver, the nascent HDL, it is acquiring the other lipoproteins, it is forming HDL3. Once it is giving away its few amount of cholesterol and TG and exchanging it in the form of cholesterol ester, it gets more and more cholesterol and proteins are there as it is forming HDL2. Now what happens to this HDL2? This is taken up by your HDL receptor, that is which is present in your liver. This is taking away all the cholesterol inside. It is acted upon by the lysosomal enzymes which degrades this protein, which is again coming back into the circulation, that is all this apolipoprotein and pure, that is lipid less HDL is coming into the circulation because they are the reservoir of your apolipoprotein A, C and E, and this cholesterol is degraded into bile acids and is excreted from the body. So in this way HDL is not allowing the leakage or your free cholesterol to be going in the circulation as it is, or it is not letting it to be deposited in the blood vessels, preventing its deleterious effect. So this as a whole, the HDL metabolism, it is synonymous to your reverse cholesterol transport. So how this HDL is helping in reverse cholesterol transport? Because it is extracting the cholesterol from the extrahepatic tissues to the liver and it is extracting the extrahepatic tissue and carries them to the liver for the metabolism of the cholesterol to the bile acids and excretion, and direct uptake of HDL is there by the hepatocytes. That's why HDL is considered to be a very good cholesterol. So this is another more clarifying picture by which cholesterol ester is being exchanged in the place of TG with VLDL. So we can see this HDL2 is giving away its cholesterol ester and it is taking away its TG and it is forming HDL. It is giving it back into the liver, where liver it degrades its cholesterol into the bile acids. So in this way HDL happens to be important in the taking away the extra cholesterol from the peripheral tissues to the liver. Now coming on to the laboratory measurements of this lipoproteins, why we are more concerned about total cholesterol and how much it should be in our blood. So normally we have TG level to be 40 to 140 milligram per deciliter. The cholesterol level it should be less than 200 milligram per deciliter. Phospholipids is 145 to 250 milligram per deciliter, and free fatty acid is 4 to 20 milligram per deciliter. So if you get this in millimole per deciliter, cholesterol, it is usually should be multiplied by 38.67 to get in concentration is milligram per deciliter. The SI unit is millimole per liter, but we are mainly habituated to milligram per deciliter.